How does it normally
No, no,
work?
no. It's all me. It's everything is me. So I do everything. Yeah, all of it
Wow.
is just little old me.
Yeah. But see, that's why I admire you so much, because the work that you do at Cheryl Clare Wellbeing, honestly, is amazing. But you do so much with that as well, though. Just looking at the things that you do for schools and young people and just young adults as well is incredible. I mean, you do so much, but which we'll get to in a minute, actually. But what I love to always ask all my guests on the podcast is how you've been these last couple of years. So for you, how have you been coping? Have you been okay?
I would say that the last couple of years have kind of triggered me into building the business that I've set up. I was in I found the lockdown really hard.
Mm,
Um, and with my own personal circumstances, I fell apart a little bit. And
really?
it took the lockdown and um, a lot of therapy to build myself back up again.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, that's where Cheryl Clare Wellbeing's kind of come from, really.
Yeah,
Is
because I remember obviously reading up on about your the work that you do. Obviously, you were a teacher for 12 years, weren't you, leading up to this
I
moment?
was, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I worked in education for 12 years and yeah, it just got to a point where I was really struggling as a teacher to meet the demands of the job. I'd been signed off with stress and anxiety and depression. Um, but I just kept battling to go back because there was a lot of guilt, and I'm sure any teachers out there will kind of I can't think of the word um, relate to that.
100%.
Um, Guilt that you can feel when you're off. Um,
Yeah.
and every time I was signed off, I just battled to go back. Um, and then, yeah, there was a significant sort of period where I was really not coping very well at all. And I ended up having a mental breakdown.
Wow.
And that was when I decided to leave. So I just thought my health is worth so much more than this job, and I just
Mm.
can't continue going the way that I was going. So I was signed off for quite a long period of time, and then I made the decision myself to just leave the education sector.
Yeah. But I completely agree with you that health is so important. It's more important than most pretty much anything in life. And how far into the job do you feel like you needed therapy yourself to overcome any obstacles that you had in life? Was it soon after you left, or was it during your period of teaching as well? Was it in between?
So I did have some support whilst I was teaching, but um, in all honesty, I think the job was so all consuming that I
Mm.
didn't really have a lot of time for myself. I didn't put myself first at all. Like my job was always put before everything else in my life. Um, so, and also I think I was a bit disillusioned as to how I could get better. Like I didn't feel like I was bad enough to seek therapy. And I think that's commonplace as well, is this sort of misconception that you have to be a certain level in order
Mm.
to go and seek support. But actually, I probably needed it more then than when I left.
Yeah.
But yeah, I during the long period of absence that I had due to my mental health, that's when I kind of sought external support and got some therapy.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, was it someone like say within the education system that you spoke to that helped you get therapy, or was it someone outside of school, or was it just a personal experience of your own?
um, it was it was just through my GP. My
Okay.
GP recommended that I had some talking therapy. So I went through a private route, and I found a therapist for myself. Um, but yeah, unfortunately, the school where I was at wasn't particularly supportive in terms of mental health.
Really?
Um, yeah, which was a shame. So yeah, so the support that I gained was through my own workings, really.
Yeah. And I know obviously you became head of department for PE, didn't you, as well? Head of PE.
I was,
And
yeah, I was.
yeah,
That was my job, was head of PE.
yeah. And what were you at the same school for 12 years, or was it at different schools in that period?
It was different school in that
Oh,
period,
different
yeah.
schools. Yeah. How did you find being head of PE?
Um, I thought it was my dream job, and when I accepted that job, I kind of thought, right, I've made it. That's it.
Mm.
Like, this is where I want to be for the next amount of time. And then I was, I wanted to be an assistant head. And then I was always working towards something. I'm extremely ambitious. So yeah, the head of PE was always like my dream job. I always wanted, that was what I wanted to do. But unfortunately for me, I think it was a lot to do with the school situation, but there was just it was just an extremely hard role to fulfill. And it just seemed that no matter how many hours I put into the job, it just wasn't enough.
Mm.
And I always felt that there was more to do and that I wasn't being enough for that position.
Mm.
And I think that also contributed to my decline of my mental health, was the fact that I just felt that I wasn't good enough and that I wasn't doing enough, and that people were judging me and saying that I wasn't good enough. Although I had no evidence for that, but it's just, that's kind of what happens when your mental health declines. You kind of start believing those things.
Of course.
But yeah, no, I think teaching in general just has its own level of stress and anxiety and pressure as well. But yeah, no, I did love it. I did love teaching, and I miss it. I miss
Mm.
being in front of the kids, but not necessarily all the politics that go with
Yeah,
the
I know
rest
all
of it.
about that as well, so don't worry. I've been there myself. But how, how did you get into teaching originally? Actually, was it, do you have like family that teaches well? Or was it like any siblings or
No,
parents?
so I got into teaching originally because my PE teacher inspired me.
Wow.
She was a huge inspiration to me. I lost my dad when I was 15.
Oh, sorry to
And I went
hear.
through quite a difficult period, obviously, that age, and not really fully wanting to accept it, and just life in general was quite hard at 15 anyway, and then having to kind of cope with that. And my PE teacher became my mentor at school.
Mm.
And we just gained a really close relationship, and she was someone that I could turn to and I spoke to regularly. And yeah, I didn't know that that's what I wanted to do, but then because of the way that I kind of dealt with things with my dad, and I wasn't really supported that well. I was just really angry, so I I made some mistakes, as we all do in life, but I ended up being on like a part-time table, and I supported the PE department quite a lot. So I spent quite a lot of time with her, and I was just like, actually, I quite enjoy doing this. Like, I enjoy coaching the younger ones.
Mm.
And then from there, I kind of gained my CSLA and did my HSLA. And then during when I was choosing what I wanted to do for my GCSEs, I was like, right, I'm definitely doing PE. And then my A levels were all based around like what would be recommended for a teacher, and then yeah, it kind of just went from there really. But yeah, my own PE teacher was my inspiration for sure.
That's amazing. And talk about that, such a difficult time for you at 15. I mean, is that something that you discussed with your therapist as well, as saying what you went through in order to that got you here in the first place as well?
Yeah, 100%. And I think quite a lot of it was actually that was probably a part of my life that I hadn't dealt with. It was just and I think a lot of what my current issues were probably stemmed around not actually dealing with or being able to deal with what happened at 15.
Mm.
Because it was just kind of put in a box, and because I didn't really have a lot of therapy at the time when it happened. And then from that point onwards, I kind of just threw myself into school, and then I threw myself into university, and I'd never really faced it.
Mm.
um, and then I'd say, in the last four years is probably when I've really kind of faced it head on and kind of dealt with it, rather than squashing it down and just being like, yeah, I'm okay.
Yeah. How
So
do you
yeah.
find facing things nowadays as opposed to when you were younger? Do you find it a lot easier to talk about things as well when face things face on, or do you still find it quite difficult because it's still like fairly fresh for you?
No, I do find it a lot easier to talk about my troubles now. And I think that I've learned through retraining and doing what I'm doing now, and also my own therapy, my thought process is slightly different. So I think talking actually is a lot easier than it ever has been. And I know that when I'm finding things a little bit difficult, like talking to my friends or talking to family, is a lot easier than it ever used to be. I definitely used to be the person that would just put a smile on and be like, yeah, I'm fine. There's nothing wrong. I'm absolutely fine.
But congratulations, though. Honestly, really proud of you of what you achieved so far and where you are in life. So amazing. Well done.